What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the part 1 of a story where neglected Izuku was trained by the legendary Dark Slayer, son of the legendary Dark Knight, Vergil. Izuku Yagi, tormented by the Bakugo twins for something he couldn't control, his only solace from this bullying was from his friends, the Todoroki twins, and his beloved sister Izumi Yagi. He yearned for more power, until one day he heard something call to him, something that could give him the power he dreamed for. The Yamato. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now, let's get into part 1. Third person POV. It was a beautiful sunny morning, the birds were singing, the light from the sun was nice and warm, and people were rising to start their days. All was quiet this early morning at the Yagi residence, until the 4-year-old green-eyed Izuku Yagi woke up in his All Might themed room. As he opened his eyes, he remembered what day it was and hurried out his door to get to his sister's room. Izumi had hair like Toshinori, long and blonde, but smooth like her mother Inko's, and her eyes were blue like her father's, whereas Izuku got all of his traits from Inko, the green hair, green eyes and the stubborn nature he always has. Izumi, wake up. Today's the day. Izumi. Yuku. Why are you? Oh right. Our quirk test is today. Izuku. Yeah. We have to go and wake up mom and dad. The twins ran into their parents' bedroom to wake them up. Due to Toshinori's job, they had more than enough money to afford the large house that they lived in. As Izuku and Izumi ran past the gym and the bathroom, they turned a corner to their parents' bedroom and barreled straight into Toshinori's legs, knocking him over. Toshinori. Oof. What are you two doing up so early? Izuku and Izumi. Sorry dad. We were coming to wake you and mom up to take us to the quirk test today. Toshinori. That was today wasn't it? He mused. Well, tell me what your quirks are when you get back. Toshinori seemed to be disappointed and in a rush. Izuku. Aren't you coming with us? Toshinori. Sorry little Izuku, but work calls. Izumi. It's okay dad. We'll tell you about our quirks when you get home. Izuku. Yeah. Toshinori. Alright then little ones, I should be back by 4 o'clock. After Toshinori got back up and walked off, Izuku and Izumi ran to their mother and woke her up, reminding her that the quirk test was today. Inko. Well then, you two better get dressed while I make breakfast. Izuku and Izumi then rushed back to their respective rooms to get ready, whilst Inko went to the kitchen to cook their breakfast. Toshinori must have been called to deal with a villain, thought Inko. He was almost as excited as the kids for this. Inko chuckled to herself at the memory of an excited Toshinori. Izuku. What? Doctor? Sorry kid, but you're quirkless. Inko, who was standing within Izuku's view, had a mixture of sadness and disappointment on her face. Izuku, seeing this, felt betrayed, his own mother, disappointed in him about something he couldn't control. He was snapped out of his angered state when he felt his sister's hand on his shoulder. Putting on a big smile, Izuku complimented her on her new quirk. Izuku. Your telekinesis quirk sounds powerful sis, you'll definitely be the next #1 hero. As the Yagi family drove home, Izuku was looking out the window the whole time, ignoring the conversation going on between Izumi and Inko. Izuku just wished he had more power. 4 o'clock rolled around, and Toshinori returned home to see that both of his kids were sitting on the couch waiting for him, Izumi with a look of excitement, Izuku less so. Seeing as they hadn't heard him enter, Toshinori decided to sneak up on them. Toshinori. Well if it isn't my two favorite children, do you want to tell your dad about your quirks? Izumi. Dad. You're home? Toshinori. Yes I am little Izumi, now, what quirk did you get? Izumi. I got a stronger form of mother's quirk. Toshinori. Amazing Izumi, now Izuku, what quirk did you get? Toshinori was confused by Izuku's lack of response, until Izumi spoke up. Izumi. Izuku. He's quirkless. Out of the corner of his eye, Izuku saw the same thing yet again. Toshinori had the same look that Inko had at the doctor's office. Sadness and disappointment. Izuku got up and stormed to his room, locked the door and flung himself onto his bed, drifting off to sleep, wishing he had more power to prove his parents wrong. Izuku woke up to the sound of knocking on his door. He walked over to the door, unlocked it and pulled it open a crack, only to see Izumi's concerned face. Opening the door all the way, Izuku allowed his sister into the room. She came in with a plate of food. Izumi. Izuku, I brought you dinner. Izuku. What? They didn't even come and get me for dinner. Izumi. They acted like you didn't exist, why are they like this? Izuku. Probably because they wanted to have children who could be heroes. They would even betray my faith in them. Izumi then wrapped him in a hug and promised him that she would never betray him. He was her brother after all, and she would never betray him. Time skip. Next day, school, lunch. Shoto. Izumi, what quirk did you get? Izumi. I got a stronger form of my mother's telekinesis quirk. Izumi was having a conversation with the Todoroki and Bakugo twins about their new quirks. Shoto Todoroki had half white and half red hair like his sister, where Shoto's red hair was on his left side, Shoka's was on the right. They both had a half hot half cold quirk. Shoto's was more powerful, whereas Shoka's was more versatile, able to be controlled to the finest detail, but less powerful than Shoto's. The Bakugo twins, loud and often unpleasant, both had sandy blonde hair, with explosive quirks to match their attitudes. Itsuki could set off explosions from his hands using his nitroglycerin sweat, whereas Kitsumi could set off explosions off from anywhere on her body, allowing for more unique ways of using her quirk. Shoka. Izumi, what were you muttering about? Izumi. Oh, nothing Shoka. Your quirks are so amazing, having a mixed quirk is so rare. Shoka. What quirk did Izuku get? Shoto. Speaking of Izuku, where is he? Izumi. Izuku. He's quirkless. Izumi's face fell as she remembered the way her parents almost forgot to wake up Izuku and take him to school this morning. Izumi. I think he's over by that tree. He's probably still upset about yesterday. Shoto. That must be why he avoided me in class today. Does he still want to be a hero? Izumi's silence spoke volumes. They were thinking about how they didn't want their friend to get hurt while aspiring to be a hero. The silence was broken by Kitsuki, who had a massive grin on his face. Kitsuki. None of you want him to get hurt whilst trying to be a hero, do you? I have an idea of how to fix that. Izumi. How? Kitsuki. Why don't we bully him with our quirks to make him afraid of them and getting hurt so that he wouldn't want to be a hero anymore? Kitsumi. That's an excellent idea, brother. Izumi. No. That's horrible, Kitsuki. Izumi, Shoto and Shoka glared at Kitsuki and Kitsumi with anger and bewilderment. Shoto. What are you even thinking? How dense are you? Shoka. Yeah, we should be protecting, not traumatizing him. Kitsuki. TCH whatever. You would stick with that useless quirkless, Deku. Kitsumi. Hey, that's a good name for the quirkless bastard. Izumi. What is wrong with you guys? He's not useless or a bastard. Izuku. Izumi's raised voice caught my attention. She never shouts like that, I thought as I walked over to see what the fuss was all about. I saw Kaken push past my sister and the Todoroki twins making a beeline for me. Just as I was about to ask what was happening, Kaken set off an explosion in my face, blasting me back onto the ground. Kaken. Useless Deku. Why do you still want to be a hero? You don't even have a quirk. Me. Why are you doing this, Kaken? Kitsumi. Because you don't deserve to be a hero, seeing as you're quirkless, Deku. Just as Kaken raised his arm to set off another explosion, the air got colder, and Kaken and Kitsumi were covered from neck down with ice. Shoto. Leave him alone. Kaken. TCH. Fine. Shoto and Shoka then released Kaken and Kitsumi from the ice. I watched them walk off angrily. My friends and sister ran over to check on me as I slowly drifted into unconsciousness from the concussion I had from the explosion and hitting my head on the floor. Third person. Little did poor Izuku know, this was only the beginning of the abuse and trauma he would receive from the Bakugo twins. Beep. 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 Another early morning for young Izuku, now 14 years of age, as he sits up in bed, his arms and back screaming out in pain. Damn Bakugo twins and their quirks, now I'm in pain all over whenever I move, these explosion injuries take a while to heal, huh? Izuku was snapped out of his muttering by his still beeping alarm. Beep. 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 Izuku. Ugh, better get ready before everyone else wakes up. After stopping his alarm, Izuku moves to freshen up and gets dressed in his Aldera uniform. He moves quietly past his parents' room so as to not wake them up and goes down to the kitchen to make a smoothie. Turning on the lights, he pulls out a blender and grabs an assortment of berries from the fridge. 2 cups Swiss chard. 1/4 beet, raw. A half cup blueberries, frozen. A half cup strawberries, frozen. A half cup water. 1 cup coconut water. 1 tablespoon almond butter, no added salt. A half tablespoons cacao powder. Muttering to himself as he puts the ingredients into the blender. After pouring the smoothie into the cup, he makes a second one for Izumi. Izumi then walked down the stairs into the kitchen just as Izuku finished pouring the smoothie. He looked up, seeing Izumi. Izuku put a grin on his face, hiding the pain in his joints and muscles, passing her the drink in her bag. Surprised, Izumi took her bag and the smoothie as the two went to walk to school. Shoka. Morning, Izuku, Izumi. Izuku. Morning, you too. Izumi. Good morning, Shoka, Shoto. Shoto. Morning. Izumi. Shoto. You sound like a zombie. Shoto. Yeah, I was up training all night. Izuku. At least Endeavor is no longer isolating you from the others. Shoto, yeah, thanks again for that Izuku. They all giggled remembering how Izuku managed to get Endeavor to warm up to him by following him around all day, constantly asking for his autograph. He also managed to make Enji and Rei become aunts and uncles due to how close the Yagi twins were to the Todoroki twins. The full family includes the Todoroki and Bakugo family, as well as Principal Nezu, who had a real liking to the broccoli boy after Nezu came to Aldera to look through the students to see how many were planning to apply for UA. Izuku's quirk analysis books caught Nezu's attention because of how in-depth they were. Not only did it show what the quirk was and how it works, it also had the advantages and disadvantages of the quirk and its user. Izuku Pav. Teacher. But why bother, you all want to go down the hero path. I must have dozed off, the teacher is talking about what we want to do in the future. Itsuki. Don't lump us in with the rest of these extras, teach. Itsumi. Yeah, these guys would be lucky to end up as a sidekick to a busted D-lister. Itsuki. Especially that useless Deku. Itsuki said this while setting off explosions in his hand, making me flinch. All the students were complaining about the Bakugo twins' attitude and cockiness until the teacher spoke up. Teacher, oh yes, you two are going to UA, aren't you? Everyone's jaw dropped at this revelation. UA was the national school and had such a high entry bar. I knew what was coming next. Teacher. Come to think of it, 6 of you want to go to UA. Shoto, Shoka, Kitsuki, Kitsumi, Izumi, and Izuku. Itsuki. Deku, you have no quirk. How do you expect to get into UA? Izuku. It's been my dream to get into UA, and they abolished the rule about quirks a while back. Boom, I was flung into a wall from the force of Kitsuki's explosion. Izumi. What are you doing? Itsuki got up in my sister's face. Itsuki. I'm showing that quirkless reject his place. The air around us got significantly colder, the telltale sign of the Todoroki twins' quirk. Before anything could happen, the final bell rang. Itsuki. TCH, whatever. Everyone else started to leave the classroom, but the teacher told me to stay behind and clean up the messy classroom. I told my friends to wait outside for me because I wouldn't be that long. Oh, how wrong I am. An explosion went off behind me, and I flinched at the sound, as if I knew what was coming next. Another explosion went off and this one hit me, and yet again, I was flung into a wall. Itsuki. You think you're better than us, Deku? Itsumi. You think you can get into UA? They didn't let me reply, they started torturing me with their quirk. From the constant torturing from when I was 4, I had an overly high pain tolerance. But even that has its limits. Izumi Pav. I heard a scream coming from the school. I turned to look at Shoto, who had already turned and ran towards the noise. Shoka and I followed suit. Hearing explosions coming from the classroom, we hurriedly opened the door. Oh, the horror we saw. Izuku was curled in the corner in the fetal position, bleeding all over, while Kitsuki and Kitsumi tortured him with their quirks. Hearing us enter, Kitsuki picked up Izuku by the arm and threw him at us like a sack of potatoes. As he was thrown, we heard a loud pop, and a small whine of pain came from Izuku. I used my telekinesis power to put him down gently. Itsuki. Heh, I've already had my fun for today, but I have some wisdom on how to get you a quirk, Deku. Izuku looked hopeful. Itsuki. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life. Before the Bakugo twins could even react, the entire classroom froze and they were trapped up to their necks in ice. I sensed pure malice emanating from the Todoroki twins. Shoto. Fuck you. Shoka. Kitsuki. Izumi. Shoto, Shoka, calm down. I had to stop them before they burned down the whole building, as both of their fire sides had started to flare. Izuku. I'm fine. Calm down, you two. The twins stopped and turned to care for Izuku, which allowed Kitsumi to break out by setting an explosion off above where the ice was, then she freed Kitsuki, and they both ran off. Izuku stood up and I almost threw up, his right shoulder was dislocated. He then turned and ran shoulder first into a wall, with a loud pop and a sigh of relief, Izuku slid down the wall. Shoka. How does that not hurt? Izuku didn't answer, he just ripped his already torn shirt off, showing us all the explosion scars he had all over his body. I was horrified, there was even one in the shape of a hand on his sternum. He then pulled out some first aid gear from his bag and started to patch himself up. Shoto. I swear, I'm gonna kill that son of a bie. Shoka slapped him before he could finish the thought. I looked over at Izuku, whose eyes no longer had that happy, joyous light in them. Now they just looked on with hate and despair. Izumi. Izuku. Come here. I embrace my brother, I feel him shaking in my arms. I feel my shirt getting wet as he starts crying, finally letting out all of that pent-up anger and sadness. He started shouting loudly into my chest. Izuku. Curse you, Kitsuki, Kitsumi. We didn't move for a while. Shoto and Shota joined the hug. Izuku just stayed still, sobbing for a few minutes before we all left. I kept my arm around my brother as we walked home. I turned to look at him and I saw him staring at the devil forest, then he mouthed one word. Power. Birdpav. Izuku had told them everything. The 10 years of torture. Constant verbal and mental abuse. Realization dawned on Izumi's face, realizing why Izuku always flinched whenever explosions went off in the movies or hero videos they watched. Izumi watched as Izuku climbed onto the roof and silently entered his room through the window, as he still didn't have a shirt. Izumi walked through the front door and saw her Dumba's father Toshinori standing there with a huge grin on his face. Toshinori. It's time for me to tell you what I do for a living. Izumi. What do you do for a living, Dad? The room started to fill with smoke and Izumi could no longer see her father. Once the smoke dissipated, Izumi was shocked at the sight she saw. All Might, I am here, young Izumi. Izumi. All Might. All Might. That's right, daughter. It is I, All Might, the #1 hero in Japan. Izumi was shocked. How could All Might of all people be a neglectful parent? She suddenly felt worried about what would happen if Izuku found out. All Might. I am telling you this today so you can inherit my quirk one for all. Izumi. One for all. Wait, inherit. All Might. Correct, my quirk has been passed down generations. All Might proceeded to give the explanation of Ofa to Izumi. Izumi. Why don't you give the quirk to Izuku? All Might. Because Izuku doesn't have the true heart of a hero. What? Izuku's 100 times more heroic than you, All Might. Izumi. Let me think about this overnight. This is a big decision. All Might. Alright, Izumi. All Might shrunk back to his skinny form and they met Inko for dinner. Izumi kept trying to remind them about Izuku, to no avail. After dinner, Izumi walked up the stairs to head to her bedroom when she saw him standing there, face red with rage. Izumi hugged her brother, telling him that she will convince Toshinori to give him the quirk instead of her. Izuku pulled away and held her at arm's length. Izuku. No, Izumi, I have a plan to gain a quirk anyway and I don't need help from Ass Might of all people. Izumi. Izuku. Don't do it. Don't think for a second they were right. Izuku. No, that's not what I mean. Izuku told Izumi about the presence calling to him from the Devil Forest, a forest they always pass on the way home. It told him it had the power he was wishing for, he would have to pass the forest's test first. Izuku. I'm going after those sorry excuses for my parents. Go to sleep. I'm going to tell Uncle Nezu about this, as well as ask if he can give me a temporary residence somewhere. I will call you to catch up with you. But the next time I see you will be at the UA entrance exams. Izumi. Alright, Izuku. Just wake me up before you go, so I can say goodbye. Izuku. I will. Izuku had a sinister smile on his face, as if he was planning something. After hugging her brother again, Izumi changed and went to sleep. She woke up to the sound of collectible figures being smashed with a baseball bat. Izumi rushed into Izuku's room, seeing all the All Might posters ripped down and figures smashed everywhere. Where the words power had been drawn all over his walls with red marker. Izuku. Ah, Izumi, I see you heard my wake-up call. Nezu has booked an apartment for me for 10 months, so I am now able to leave this hellhole. Then when we get into UA, we will be staying in the dorms provided. Izumi. Did you have to cause this destruction? Izuku shrugged. Needed to get my anger out one way or the other. He walked forward and hugged Izumi, saying goodbye. Izuku. I'll see you in 10 months at the UA entrance exam, okay? Promise me. The tearful Izumi replies. I promise you, brother. See you in 10 months. Izuku walked to the window and opened it. Izuku. There is a letter on my desk, explaining everything. When Nezu and Detective Tsukauchi come over in 3 days, use some excuse like, where is Izuku, then come in here and call the others to come see. This will help be proof. Izuku hopped out the window and walked down the street, waving at Izumi. Izuku Pav. I finally fully realized what a line from my favorite song meant. Izuku. Cast aside, there's no coming home. When you're happy, you enjoy the song, and when you're sad, you understand the lyrics. I walked into the forest and stopped, sensing a demonic energy emitting from the center of the forest. Walking towards it, I slipped on a patch of moss and fell on my face, just as a log trap flew over my head. This must be what they meant by the test. I thought to myself. I kept walking towards the center of the forest until I entered a clearing. Seeing that there was nothing in the clearing, I was confused. Until I felt the demonic energy was much stronger further south from my current position. I pushed forward, jumping over spike pits, dodging log traps and knife traps. The traps are getting more dangerous and common. That must mean I'm getting closer. I thought to myself. I dodged another log trap and jumped over another spike pit, then there was nothing. No more traps. Then I saw it, laying there on a rock. A huge grin broke out on my face. Izuku Yamato. Last time. Izuku Pav. I walked into the forest and stopped, sensing a demonic energy emitting from the center of the forest. Walking towards it, I slipped on a patch of moss and fell on my face, just as a log trap flew over my head. This must be what they meant by the test. I thought to myself. I kept walking towards the center of the forest until I entered a clearing. Seeing that there was nothing in the clearing, I was confused. Until I felt the demonic energy was much stronger further south from my current position. I pushed forward, jumping over spike pits, dodging log traps and knife traps. The traps are getting more dangerous and common. That must mean I'm getting closer. I thought to myself. I dodged another log trap and jumped over another spike pit, then there was nothing. No more traps. Then I saw it, laying there on a rock. A huge grin broke out on my face. Izuku Yamato. Now. Izuku Pav. I walked up to the Yamato, hearing it calling to me. I touched the sheath, then jumped back as two apparitions appeared in front of me. One was a 6'5", 196 centimeters tall male, with white slick back hair, wearing a long, silver-buttoned black coat with light neon blue serpentine patterns, and 3 separated coattails with slightly tattered edges. Under this coat, a black sleeveless zippered turtleneck beneath his midnight blue formal vest. He was also wearing charcoal gray fingerless gloves, black pants and dark boots covered by teal gaiters. The name popped into his head, as if it was always there. Vergil. The other person next to Vergil was wearing a simple blue dress and had long white hair down to her waist. She was the spirit of the Yamato. Vergil? This one? Yamato? Yes, Vergil. Vergil? He doesn't look like much. Yamato? Vergil. He has a drive for power that is equal, if not greater, than yours. Vergil? Humph. Fine. Kid, I have a question for you. What is your favorite drink? I was snapped out of my stupor by this question. Izuku? The berry delight smoothie. Vergil? Well, that's convinced me. Yamato? Of course that's what would convince you. Vergil? What? I told you it's the best drink ever made. I walked past the two, who were still arguing about the best drink, and picked up the Yamato. The sword, not the woman. I walked back, remembering the stories of what happened years ago. Vergil split himself into 2 parts, a demon and a human. The human's name was V, and the demon was known as Demon King Urizen. A part of Vergil's soul must have been tethered to this sword. After Nero, Vergil's son, beat him, he and Dante entered the demon realm to cut down the Clefth tree. Dante managed to escape, but Vergil didn't make it out. Before he died, Vergil threw the Yamato to Dante so he could escape. Vergil? What are you muttering about, kid? Izuku? Nothing. But I have a request. Vergil? Now I'm intrigued. Izuku? Could you two teach me how to use the Yamato? Vergil looked over to Yamato, who gave an approving nod, then looked back at me. Vergil? Kid, I'm gonna have to merge my soul with yours if you want to even wield that sword. But, it will be painful and your personality will change entirely, for the most part. Are you willing to go through with that? Izuku? Heh, pain is easy. I accept your terms, Vergil. Vergil? Alright kid, after this transformation is finished, you will be half human and half demon. He walked forwards with his arms outstretched, as if calling to some higher being. Vergil? Sparda, accept my new successor, the one who will climb to the top. Izuku Yagi, do you cast aside your former name to become Izuku Sparda? Izuku? I do. Vergil? Welcome to the family. Vergil then turned into blue essence and flowed into my chest. I looked up at Yamato, and she had a worried look on her face. I was confused until the pain kicked in. Third person Pav. Izuku fell to the ground, writhing around and screaming, as his cells were forcibly changed around to fit with the new physiology he was given by Vergil. This pain was much worse than the Bakugo twins had ever given him. Yamato looked at her dress as it changed from blue to green. Then the pain cut off. Izuku stood up slowly, breathing heavily. He picked up the Yamato and allowed it to fade into his soul. The spirit of the Yamato followed Izuku out of the forest and to an apartment that Nezu had provided for Izuku. Izuku Sparda. So, we have 10 months until the UA entrance exam. What can I learn in that short of time, Yamato? Yamato? Everything. You have all of Vergil's memories, so all we need to do is some practical learning and some physical strength training. Just so you can get some practice in with your new strength. Izuku? Alright, I'm going to sleep now. I know a spot we could go for that, the Takoba Municipal Beach Park. There is so much garbage around that no one will see us. Wait, can people actually see you? Or only me? Yamato? No, only you and descendants of Vergil's can't see me. Come to think of it, one of Vergil's descendants is planning on going to UA. Izuku? Well, I hope to see them there. Good night, Yamato. Yamato? Good night, Izuku. I'll warn you of people approaching. Izuku. Thanks. Yeah. Ma. He fell asleep before being able to finish thanking Yamato. She smiled. This young boy, he was stronger and smarter than Vergil. So strong, in fact, that he forcibly changed the natural blue color of the Yamato to green. Yamato chuckled to herself. This is going to be fun. She thought. Izuku stood up and wandered into the bathroom to get ready to go out to train. He summoned the Yamato sword to his hand and was surprised how it changed his outfit when he summoned it. Izuku. I like it. He saw some hair gel on the table in the bathroom. Ah, what the hell, why not, thought Izuku. Picking up the hair gel, Izuku styled his hair so that it had a similar look to Vergil's. Yamato. I like it. Izuku, thanks Yamato. Now let's go to training. Yamato. Alright, off to the beach. They walked out of the apartment and in the direction of the beach. People were staring at Izuku due to his slightly unusual jet pen sword he was carrying. Izuku didn't mind the attention, he walked with his head held high, proud of his new costume. The beach was a sight to behold, and not for good reasons. The whole beach was littered with different types of garbage. The smallest being paper bags, and the biggest being cars. Izuku. These scum, leaving their trash on this beach. Yamato. You're reminding me of Vergil more and more. Izuku nodded his head and jumped down into an open area and drew the Yamato from its sheath and started some basic moves with it. Normal slashes to begin with, then some moves infused with demonic energy. First, Judgment Cut. Yamato. A versatile and powerful move, great for ending combos with or for keeping enemies away. Then Izuku trained with his Mirage Blades. Shooting small green energy knives from thin air. These allowed him to teleport to any enemy that the blade got lodged in. Izuku really liked the idea of teleporting behind his enemies. Yamato. Now for your special move, Judgment Cut. And. Izuku. Right, let's do this, I'm feeling really motivated by all this new power. Izuku. Judgment Cut. And. Performing a bunch of rapid slashes, seeming to fracture reality, before returning to where he was standing and sheathing Yamato. Before he could say anything, Izuku heard a voice he never wished to hear again. All Might. Stop right there. Who are you? Izuku just stood there, his back facing his father, before he jumped off from the beach and onto the path, before running away from All Might. All Might. I said stop. Giving chase, All Might eventually caught up with Izuku at the edge of the forest, before Izuku drew Yamato. Slashing the air, making a plus mark in reality, before turning slightly to look at All Might and walking through the portal, which closed after he crossed the threshold. Izumi Pav. Izumi followed All Might, who was chasing after this man in a green suit. Wondering who he is, she caught up at the edge of the forest, seeing the man stop, slashed the air to open a portal, and turned slightly. Izumi gasped at the sight of her brother, but she could do nothing as she watched her brother walk through the portal, reality closing behind him. All Might. That boy looked familiar. I stared at him blankly, how could he forget his own son? Even with his new hairstyle, he still had the same face, but there was more confidence in the way he held himself. As we walked back to the beach, All Might told me about how I needed to train my body to be able to use OFA to its fullest potential. He marked out a section of the beach for me to clean before the UA entrance exam. Izuku Pav. As I walked out through the devil forest, I bumped into a girl, a head shorter than me with shoulder-length, pure white hair. Blue eyes, just like his. I found your great-granddaughter, Vergil. Izuku. Sorry, are you okay? Girl. Why yeah. Izuku. You look lost, do you need help? Girl. Yes mister, I ran away from home. No one accepts my quirk. My grandfather accepts it, but people at school say it's villainous, and my parents don't want me to go to UA and become a hero. Izuku. I was neglected by my parents because I was quirkless, so I ran away like you have. The name's Izuku Sparda by the way, what's yours? Girl. Sparda. Izuku, yes Sparda. Girl. My name is Hanako Sparda. Hanako had started backing away from me, she must have thought I was related to Dante. Izuku. Not by blood, but by succession. I summoned the Yamato to my hand, and the spirit of the Yamato appeared behind me, watching the girl. Hanako. Wait. That's Yamato. You mean to tell me that you are my great-grandfather's successor? Izuku. Correct. I walked towards the excited girl. I put my arm on her shoulder and told her that I had an apartment with a spare bed if she needed a place to stay the night. Before I could take her there, I heard the sound of rubber screeching on bitumen. Looking up, I was blinded by the headlights of an SUV flying towards us at top speed. Izuku. Doppelganger. I summoned Doppelganger in his full form as I rushed forwards and tackled Hanako out of the way of the speeding car. As we fell to the ground, I heard the horrible sound of a car crunching. Doppelganger had gone to pull people out of the car, but all he found was a brick on the accelerator and some exposed wires. I finally realized that I was still laying over Hanako, so I got up and offered her my hand. Izuku, are you okay? Hanako wrapped her arms around me, I could feel how much she was shaking. Izuku, it's okay, Hanako. I'll protect you. Once Hanako came back to her senses, I went over to the wreck to see what happened. Doppelganger returned to my soul as I looked at the brick on the accelerator and the obviously hot-wired engine. I turned to Hanako and offered my hand to her again. She didn't let go until we got to my apartment where she explained to me how her quirk works. Hanako. It's called Devil Trigger, it allows me to change forms into a more demonic look, but it gives a massive strength and speed boost, but I can only use it for 10 minutes at a time, as it saps a lot of stamina, so it's practically useless. Izuku. That's such an amazing quirk. The stamina is a problem though, so I recommend you do more stamina training to increase it, as well as general strength training, as your quirk boosts your normal strength. Another thing you could do is push the limits of how long you can use the quirk, so go past your limit to try and decrease the stamina used. The more you use it, the less stamina it will use up. I had realized that I had started rambling again. I looked to see what her reaction was, and she had the cutest grin I had ever seen. After profusely apologizing for rambling on, with her telling me that it was okay, I showed her to her room, in which she went to sleep almost immediately. With a smile on my face, I walked to my room, turned off the light and went to sleep. Third person POV. The next day. Izuku was awoken by the smell of bacon being cooked. He got out of his bed and put a shirt on to hide his scars from Hanako. Izuku then opened the door to his room. Izuku. Ooh, what's this wonderful smell? Hanako. Bacon, egg and cheese sandwiches. There was a knock at the door. Izuku went to it, knowing that only one person knew where he was. He opened the door and was greeted by none other than Principal Nezu. Izuku. Uncle Nezu. Please, come in. Hanako. Did you say Nezu? Wait, Uncle. Nezu. Who's this new guest Izuku? Izuku. Ah, pardon my rudeness, this is Hanako SPARDA, a new friend of mine. I met her last night after she ran from her home. Hanako. He saved me from a rogue SUV last night. I'd hardly call that meeting someone. Nezu. Ah Izuku, as heroic as always. Anyway, I came to visit so I could get you to sign these papers that will be offered to your parents tomorrow. As Izuku signed the papers and returned them to Nezu, Hanako brought out some tea for all of them to drink. The tea was the best that Izuku had tasted. Even Nezu was surprised by how good the tea was. Before Nezu left, he imparted some info to Hanako. Nezu. Izuku is the best quirk analyst I have ever seen, he's probably told you some ways of bettering your quirk already. He will definitely help you get stronger, that boy has a heart of gold I tell you. After Nezu left, Izuku and Hanako had breakfast. Izuku chose this moment to tell her of his plans for today. Izuku. So, Hanako, today we are going to go to the Devil Forest so I can see firsthand how your quirk works. Hanako. Alright, what are we going to do though? Izuku. We're going to do some sparring. Izuku and Hanako went to their respective rooms to get changed. Izuku walked away from the front door. Hanako, confused, followed him until Izuku opened a portal with Yamato. Izuku. Follow me. Hanako followed Izuku. The portal was cold and dark. The pair appeared in the Devil Forest, Izuku then summoned the spirit of the Yamato. Hanako was surprised at seeing the spirit again, realizing who the spirit was, she got excited. Once Izuku finished questioning the spirit, he turned to Hanako. Izuku. Alright, I want you to fight me as if I was an enemy. Activate your devil trigger. Hanako. I don't want to hurt you, I can't control my quirk. Izuku just smiled reassuringly. Izuku. Well then, let's see if you can beat me without your devil trigger. Izuku then moved into a crouched fighting stance. Hanako, still unsure about his strength, rushed forwards with a jumping kick, only for Izuku to easily deflect it and pin her to the ground. Izuku let go of her, and Hanako stood up. Izuku. See what I mean? Now, come at me with full force. Hanako rushed forwards at full speed, feinting a high punch, whilst throwing a real punch at Izuku's midsection. He stopped it. Izuku. Nice one, but I want you to use your devil trigger now. Hanako. Humph, fine. Hanako activated her devil trigger. When he saw this, a huge grin broke out on Izuku's face. Izuku POV. She moved at blinding speeds, hearing a small crunch behind me, I ducked under a sudden kick, I was running on pure instinct at this point. I spun around from my crouched position to try and sweep her legs out from under her, but she was already out of range. She rushed at me with that blinding speed again, so I decided to match her speed. She appeared behind me, then I moved behind her. She suddenly whipped around and threw a punch that I barely managed to block in time. Izuku. Now I'm a little motivated. Summoning the Yamato to my hand, I shot a mirage blade at her, which she caught, but my plan was never to hit her. Teleporting to her, I grabbed the arm that she was using to hold the mirage blade and spun her around before letting go. I watched her fly for a bit before teleporting behind her and catching her before she flew into the tree. Izuku. Now that was fun. The two kept training like this for the whole day. Sparring for 10 minutes at a time, with a half-hour break between each bout. By the end of the day, Hanako's time limit for her devil trigger had increased to 15 minutes. Izuku had started to sweat by the end of their training session, whereas Hanako was drenched in sweat. Izuku opened a portal with Yamato that led back to the apartment. I let Hanako use the shower first, seeing as she was drenched in sweat from the constant use of her devil trigger. I took off my shirt as it was a little damp with sweat, then moved to the kitchen to start cooking dinner. I heard the bathroom door creak open. I felt fear, realizing that I didn't have my shirt on. I rushed to my room until I heard her voice. Hanako. Izuku, stop. I sighed in defeat and turned around to face her, showing my scars in full. Hanako. Oh my god. What happened? She rushed towards me to get a better look at my scars, her face showing nothing but concern. I stood still whilst she walked around, inspecting all of my scars. Some of my torso was still covered with bandages due to the torture I had gotten a few days earlier. I decided to tell her everything. All the torture I had gone through and everything that was said to me. By the end of the story, I had started to tear up again. Once I had finished the story, I broke down. Hanako just wrapped her arms around me and held me until I finally stopped crying. Izuku. Thank you, Hanako. I'm glad that I have found another person I can trust. Hanako. I'm glad you trust me, Izuku. Hanako had whispered something at the end of that sentence, but I didn't hear it. When I asked her what she said, she just blushed and turned away. I smiled at this. Then we had dinner while chatting about the progress we had made today. Hanako. I can't believe it, I actually managed to go 15 minutes before my stamina ran out. Izuku. Yeah. How about we make a goal? Hanako. What will the goal be? Izuku. How about we try to get to 2 hours by the UA entrance exam? Hanako. That sounds a bit difficult, but I'll give it a try. Izuku. As a wise man once said, do or do not, there is no try. We are going to get your limit to 2 hours, Hanako. Hanako. Alright, Izuku. I will get to 2 hours before the UA entrance exam. Izuku. Now that's the spirit. After some more chatting, we went to bed, both of us tired from the day of training. Hanako more so than I. The next day, 8 AM. Third person POV. Izuku woke up to silence. Hanako must still be asleep, poor thing, she must be drained from yesterday's training. Izuku thought as he got up and got dressed. He walked into the kitchen, then was surprised by a knock at the door. That's strange, Nezu wouldn't be coming by today as he is getting ready for dinner later. Izuku walked to the door and opened it. Standing there was an elderly gentleman, in his late 70s early 80s. Izuku felt a familiar aura emanating from him. Is Hanako here? Izuku. Yes, she is here, Mr. Nero. Nero? Please just call me Nero, young Izuku. Warning bells rung in Izuku's head. He turned back to Nero and summoned Yamato. Nero only raised his hand to stop him. Nero? Lady Yamato told me of you, young Izuku. Izuku? Okay, I'll go wake her up. Returning Yamato to his soul, Izuku turned back into his apartment and walked over to Hanako's room. Izuku? Make yourself at home, Nero. Izuku knocked on Hanako's door. Izuku? There's a visitor for you. Goes by the name of Nero. Izuku heard Hanako getting dressed in her room. He walked to the kitchen to make some tea for them all. Hanako rushed out of her room and straight to Nero. Hanako. Grandpa Nero. How did you find us? Nero. I tracked the demonic energy of your devil trigger and this boy's sword told me. Hanako. Huh, neat. Nero. I just wanted to check that you were okay and check who you were staying with. Hanako. Izuku is so kind and helpful, he saved me from a rogue car. Nero. Did he now? Hanako. Yeah, he did. Also, he's very cute. Izuku. I can hear you from here. Hanako. AHH. Izuku walked out with the tea, blushing slightly, whereas Hanako was red in the face. Nero was laughing at her reaction. Nero. Ah, young love, such a beautiful thing. Hanako. WWW what? This caused both Nero and Izuku to start laughing. Hanako just got redder and redder. Hanako, quietly. Stop teasing me, guys. Izuku walked up to her, placed a hand on her head, and gave her the teacup. Izuku. You're so cute when you are flustered. This brought out another laugh from Nero and caused Hanako to widen her eyes and blush even more. The three got acquainted over the rest of the day. Izuku explains how he got the Yamato and how he met Hanako. Nero told stories of the time he was a part of the devil hunter group called Devil May Cry. Nero stayed until dinner. Izuku had a look of awe on his face at hearing all of the stories that Nero had told. After Nero had left, Lady Yamato appeared and told Izuku something. "Yamato, I'm going to have to fuse with you like Vergil did. That way you can unlock all of your weapons and your Sin Devil trigger." Izuku: "Alright Yamato, it's been fun. I'm ready." Lady Yamato then turned into green energy and floated towards Izuku's chest. When she fused with him, Izuku felt nothing. Then suddenly, pain. More pain than when Vergil fused with him. Izuku fell to the floor, screaming at the top of his lungs, rolling around in pain, unable to find solace from this pain. Hanako rushed out to see what was wrong, but she could do nothing. 10 minutes later, the pain stopped. Hanako. "Izuku, what happened? Are you okay?" Izuku, weakly. "I'm okay Hanako, I just fused my soul with Lady Yamato's." Hanako then carried Izuku to his room and placed him on his bed, hoping that he was okay. Izuku had already fallen asleep in her arms due to the fatigue. Hanako ran her hand through his hair. "Hanako. Good night Izuku. You won't hear this, but I love you." Hanako left Izuku's room to return to hers to sleep. Third person Pav. Inko. "Izumi. Are you ready yet? The guests are almost here." Izumi. "Yes mother, I'm coming out now." Izumi walked downstairs and went to the kitchen, passing Inko and Toshinori. Izumi. "So, who's coming tonight mum?" Inko. Nezu and his +1, Mitsuki and her kids, Enji and his kids." Izumi. "Who is Uncle Nezu's +1? Toshinori. "He didn't tell us, he said it was a surprise." Toshinori shuddered at the thought of who this surprise person could be. It wasn't long before a knock was heard at the door. Izumi. "I'll get it." As Izumi opened the door, she was greeted by the sight of Principal Nezu on the shoulder, of who she could only assume to be Detective Tsukauchi. "Nezu. Am I a dog? Am I a mouse? Am I a bear? That's up to you. But I'm Nezu." Izumi. "Hello Uncle Nezu, and you must be Nezu's +1, Mr. Tsukauchi." "The name is Tsukauchi, Namasa Tsukauchi." Izumi. "Hello Mr. Tsukauchi, please come inside, both of you, the dining room is just through there." Soon, all the guests had arrived for the dinner, but a couple of people noticed something was a bit off. The Todoroki twins were the first to voice their concerns. "Shoto. Aren't we forgetting someone?" Shoka. "Yeah, where's Izuku?" Toshinori. "He must be in his room still, you can go get him." Izumi, Shoto and Shoka all got up and went to Izuku's room. Opening the door, Shoto and Shoka couldn't see through the darkness, but when they turned on the light, they gasped in surprise. Izumi. "Guys, you might want to come see this." As some of the others came to look, Shoto spotted a note on the table and walked over to it. Everyone who saw the room was surprised by the state of it. Cracked plastic and ceramic pieces were strewn all over the floor, desks and bed. Posters were shredded to pieces, and the word power was written all over the walls in red. Shoto. "This letter, it's directed to Toshinori and Inko, as well as the Bakugo twins." Returning to the dining room, the letter was opened, and what was written inside was a shock to all but Izumi, who already knew all this. Izumi pretended to be shocked by the news in the letter. Shoto reading the letter. To Toshinori. "Hello father, if you are reading this letter, it means I have run away due to all of the neglect from my parents, and all of the abuse from the Bakugo twins. Let's start with the neglect. Toshinori and Inko, I refuse to call them mum and dad anymore, have neglected me since they found out about my quirklessness. They refuse to talk to me and even interact with me. Whenever I was injured, they refused to take me to the hospital, so I was forced to learn first aid all by myself. If you ask them what I liked, I doubt you would get a correct answer." Izumi can vouch for what the correct answers are. Now onto the abuse. Kitsuki and Kitsumi constantly physically and mentally abused me. The photos that I have left in the envelope show all of the scars I have from the abuse. Couldn't be subtle, could you, Bakugo twins? The tipping point for all of this was the last day at Eldera High. Kitsuki told me he had a way to get a new quirk, to take a swan dive off the roof, and hope for one in my next life. Don't worry, this isn't a suicide note, I just ran away. I just want to say thank you to Izumi, Shoto and Shoka for helping me get through this, and thanks to Uncle Nezu for providing me with an apartment for the next 10 months until the UA entrance exam. Oh, almost forgot to reveal this, Toshinori, or should I say All Might, is the worst father to ever exist. Who knew the symbol of peace would rather give his quirk to his daughter, instead of allowing his son a chance at being a hero. Just because I was quirkless, and you believed I didn't have the true heart of a true hero. One final fuck you, ass might, Inko. Fuck you too, Kitsuki, Kitsumi. Much hate. Izuku. The room was silent. Everyone had gasped, discovering that Toshinori was actually All Might. The only people who weren't surprised by this statement were Nezu, Detective Tsukauchi and Izumi. Nezu grabbed the envelope and tipped out the Polaroid photos, revealing a shirtless Izuku with hundreds of scars on his front, sides, and back. Nezu. So, care to answer some questions on why you two neglected your son? Ashinori. That's all lies. We never neglected him. Tsukauchi. Okay then, what's his favorite drink? Ashinori. Inko. Ashinori. I don't know. Tsukauchi. Damn. He's telling the truth. Nezu. Now it's your turn, Kitsuki, Kitsumi. Did you two abuse Izuku? Kitsuki. That damn quirkless bastard Deku. I'm going to kill him next time I see him. Everyone had a look of horror at the words that just came out of Kitsuki's mouth. Especially his mother. Tsukauchi pulled out 2 sheets of paper while Mitsuki reprimanded her kids for their actions. Fear suddenly showed on their faces as the papers were pulled out, but luckily for them, they were disownment papers that Toshinori and Inko had to sign. Enji, who had been holding himself together this whole time, finally snapped. He stood up and grabbed Toshinori by the shirt, lifting him off the ground. Enji. How could you do this, Toshinori, neglecting your son, you damn hypocrite. Enji's body burst into flames as Toshinori entered his buff form so he could put his feet on the ground. Everyone gasped again, finally seeing for themselves the proof that Toshinori was All Might. Bray. Enji, calm down, you're going to burn the whole building down. Enji managed to calm himself down, whilst All Might and Inko looked at the ground in despair. Nezu chose this moment to talk to the Bakugo twins about what was going to happen with them. Nezu. As for you two, as much as I hate to say this, Izuku has requested for you two to not be punished in any way. So consider yourselves lucky. But this type of attitude is frowned upon at UA. The Bakugo twins looked up in surprise, wondering why Izuku spared them. A scary smile appeared on Nezu's face as he said the next part of Izuku's message. Nezu. He wanted you two to be at UA so that he could show you two what true power is. His quirk has finally come into play, and from what I have seen, it rivals that of the devil hunters of old. Fear shone on the Bakugo twins' faces. They were huge fans of the Devil May Cry crew and knew how strong they were. Nezu then walked back over to Inko and All Might, who had shrunk back down to his small form, laughing menacingly the whole way. All hail the rat god. Nezu. As for you two, Toshinori will have his pay docked, and both of you have to sign these disownment papers provided by Tsukauchi. As everything was finalized, Nezu turned to Izumi, smiled and gave a thumbs up. Nezu. Izuku says, see you in 10 months sis. He really regrets that it had to come to this, but he always smiles when he talks about you. This put a smile on Izumi's face. The next day. Izuku's apartment. Izuku. Ah. Shit, that hurts. Hanako. Izuku. Are you okay? Izuku. Yes Hanako, I'm good. Hanako. Are you sure? Izuku. Yes, I'm sure Hanako. Sadly, no training today though. My arms are in pain. Izuku got up out of bed, trying to avoid using his arms too much. Hanako. Hey, you lay down on the couch. Izuku. No, I'm okay. Hanako. I wasn't asking. Lay down. Izuku let out a sigh of defeat and lay down on the couch. Hanako walked over and sat on the couch with him. Hanako. Now, what happened to you last night? Izuku. I fused with Lady Yamato. Which allows me to use all of my weapons now. Hanako. Your shoulder's bleeding. Let me get the bandages. Hanako rushed off to get the medical supplies while Izuku took his shirt off. Hanako applied some disinfectants, which Izuku didn't react to at all. This confused Hanako, but she kept treating the wound. Izuku winced as he reached one hand up and brushed Hanako's hair behind her ear, making her blush. Izuku appeared to care for Hanako a lot, although she didn't know the true extent. Izuku stared into Hanako's sky blue eyes as she wrapped the bandage around his shoulder. Once she was finished treating his wound, Hanako stood up to put the medical supplies back. As she left, she thought she heard Izuku sigh sadly. When she walked back into the room, Hanako saw Izuku trying to sit up. She walked forward and put a hand on his chest, pushing him back down. Hanako. No, you're staying there for the rest of the day. Izuku. But. Hanako. No buts. Stay. Izuku. Alright, fine. I have 2 requests though. First, could you get my phone for me? Hanako. Why? Izuku. I'm expecting a call from Uncle Nezu and I need to call my sister as well to let her know I'm fine. Hanako walked out and got the phone for him. When she returned, Izuku had the TV remote in his hand. Hanako. Izuku. I thought I told you to stay there. Izuku. I did, the Pelginger got the remote for me. Hanako. Humph. Izuku. Ooh. All-day movie marathon. Surely we will watch these Hanako. Hanako. Alright, as long as it's not horror, I'll watch anything. Hanako sat down on another couch. Okay, that was a sad sigh, definitely. Hanako thought to herself. Hanako. What? Did you want me to sit with you? Izuku. Wah, but I didn't say that. Hanako. Ugh, fine, I'll come sit with you. Izuku. You're joking, right? Hanako was not joking. She had already stood up and walked over to where Izuku was laying down. She got him to sit up so she could sit where his head was. Izuku placed his head on her lap. Only to jump at the sound of his phone. He sat up and picked up his phone. It was a message from Nezu. Hey Nezu. Last night was successful, your parents signed the disownment forms, there is a last name change form in the mail for you. Izumi said she wanted you to call her so she could see your face. Izuku replied Nezu's message with thanks, then opened his contacts. Hanako. Who are you calling? Izuku. My sister. Before he could call the number, Izuku received a FaceTime request from Izumi. Accepting it, he held the phone up and smiled. Izuku. Hello, Izumi. Izumi. Oh my god. What happened to your shoulder? Hanako chose this moment to reveal herself by laying her head on his injured shoulder. Hanako. I don't know what happened to his shoulder. Nightmares maybe. Izumi. Wah, who's this? Izuku. Let me introduce you to Hanako, this is my sister Izumi. Izumi, this is my roommate Hanako. Izuku blushed, realizing what he almost said. Hanako. What were you going to call me? Izuku. Ah. No, it was an accident, I swear. They heard laughing from the other end of the phone. Izumi. Ha 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 ha. Oh brother, awkward as ever I see. Izuku. Hanako. Well, it's nice to meet you Izumi. Izuku holds you in high praise. Izumi. Nice to meet you too, Hanako. I'm glad Izuku has found someone else he can trust. Hanako. Thanks, Izumi. Izuku. Ah. I'm sorry Hanako. Hanako. For what? Hanako wanted to tease Izuku to get him back for yesterday. Izuku. F for almost calling you my G. Izumi. Stop teasing him, Hanako. As funny as it is, I want to talk to a functional Izuku. Hanako. Alright. As Izuku and Izumi caught up on what was happening in each of their lives, with Hanako adding her input every now and then, Izumi heard a noise. Izumi. Shoot, I have to go. Toshinori is calling for me. See you Izuku, Hanako. Izuku. See you later sis. Hanako. Bye Izumi. Now I can torment my boyfriend freely. Izuku. Yeah. Wait what? That was the last thing Izumi heard before the call was cut off. Giggling uncontrollably, she went to go see her father to find out what he wanted. Izuku. Are you serious? Hanako. Yes Izuku, I am. Izuku just stared wide-eyed at her in shock. He couldn't believe what he had heard. Hanako called him her boyfriend. A reject like him. Hanako. What? Do you not want me to be your girlfriend? She got a hug in reply. Stunned for a second, she hugged him back. When Izuku let go, he had a pained loom on his face. Izuku. Shit, my arms. Hanako. Don't do that again, dummy. I care for you, you know. Izuku. Yes I do, Hana. Izuku chose this moment to lay his head back on Hanako's lap. She was stunned and red in the face from what he called her. The movies had started to play, it seemed like it was an action-based marathon. Every time that there was an explosion in the movies, Izuku flinched. Hanako, noticing this, asked him what was wrong. Hanako. Izuku. Are you okay? Why are you flinching so much? Izuku. It's them. They're everywhere. Hanako, seeing the fear on Izuku's face, turned off the TV. She grabbed his face and turned it to hers. They sat there for a bit. Once he had calmed down, Izuku apologized to Hanako. Hanako. It's okay Izu, how are your arms doing? Izuku. They don't hurt as much as they did this morning. Wait, what did you call me? Hanako. What's wrong, Izu dear? Izuku just blushed a little and turned away. This earned a laugh from Hanako. Izuku. Well, I've got to go to the shops to buy some more food for us. Hanako. I'm coming with you. I don't trust you to not hurt yourself again. Izuku. Alright Hana. Let's go. Hanako threw a shirt at Izuku, which he put on. Izuku saw a frown on Hanako's face. This made him grin evilly. Izuku. Would you prefer me to not wear a shirt? Hanako. Huh? What? I never said that. Izuku started laughing at this. Izuku. You were thinking of it, weren't you? Hanako. No. Izuku held out his hand. Izuku. Well, you coming? Hanako walked forward and took his hand. Izuku pav. I got up out of my bed and got ready for today. Today was the day all of our training had led up to today. I went to go wake up Hanako, but she was already up and ready. She looked excited, as if she couldn't wait to show off her new power. I held my hand out to her, which she took, and we headed off to go to UA. When we arrived, we were directed to a room where the pro-hero present Mick was giving an overly loud speech. I tuned out for most of his speech, even though Hanako kept poking me to try and get me to pay attention. One of the other students was asking about the zero-pointer robots. I already knew most of the information because of Uncle Nezu. Then I heard it, the loud aggressive Pomeranian was shouting at the student who was asking about the zero-pointers. Tenyuita was his name. Hanako poked me again, a little harder this time. Hanako. Oi, it's time to go to the exam area. I got up rubbing my eyes and followed her out of the room. We came to a big closed gate with some other students. The Bakugo twins seemed to be in a different area and the Todoroki twins got in on the recommendation exam. So they were basically already in. I grinned, summoning the Yamato to my hand. The gates opened and I rushed straight in, not waiting for someone to say go. I heard Present Mick say something about heroes not waiting for someone to tell them to go, but I didn't really hear him over the sounds of the robots. Third person Pav. Izuku was destroying robots all over the place, he destroyed whatever he saw, occasionally saving people who needed help. Nezu was impressed at the sight. As he was watching Izuku, All Might walked into the room in his skinny form. Tashinori. That boy looks familiar. Nezu. His file says that his name is Izuku SPARDA. Tashinori. Izuku. That green hair. Is that my son? Nezu. No you don't have a son anymore. You were forced to disown him because of your neglect. Tashinori flinched at this, remembering that he really shouldn't mess with Nezu, especially when it comes to his former son. Nezu cracked his knuckles, 2 minutes were remaining, time to release the zero-pointers. Nezu slammed his fist down on the big red button on his control panel. Izuku felt it, the rumbling through the ground. He looked up, seeing a massive zero-pointer. He was going to walk away and go attack more robots when he saw an auburn-haired girl laying on the ground in the path of the zero-pointer. Izuku sighed and walked over to her. Izuku? Are you okay? No, I think I sprained my ankle. Izuku? I'll get you to safety. Doppelganger. Take this girl to safety while I deal with this scum. The Doppelganger nodded and picked up the girl and moved to the entrance. Izuku started laughing, quietly at first, but it slowly got both louder and less sane sounding. Nezu had a smile on his face as Izuku's laugh rivaled that of his own, as the people in the office and around Izuku were afraid of his laugh. Izuku. Oh Nezu, you've outdone yourself. Now I'm feeling a little motivated. Izuku then ran forwards, up the leg of the zero-pointer, and onto its shoulder. He then jumped above its head, drew the Yamato from its sheath, and cut the zero-pointer in two with a falling slash. Izuku flinched from the big explosion caused by the splitting of the zero-pointer. Then as Izuku was about to go find more robots to attack, the bell rang, signaling the end of the practical exam. Loudspeaker Nezu. Would SPARDA, Yagi, Bakugo twins, and Todoroki twins please come to the viewing room? Hanako. Well, I guess Nezu wants to talk with you, I'll meet you at the written exam room then. Izuku. No, come with me, I don't want to have to deal with those two without you. Hanako. But Nezu didn't call for me. Izuku. He won't mind. Izuku grabbed her hand and took her to the viewing room, only stopping to check if the auburn-haired girl, who introduced herself as Achako Uraraka, was okay. When they finally got to the doors, Izuku placed his hands on them, but hesitated. Hanako placed her hands over his, reassuring him. The room was a sight to behold. Tons of monitors over a control panel, people shouting at each other. The Todoroki and Bakugo twins were at each other's throats. Everyone went silent as Izuku's boots clacked against the floor as he walked past Tashinori and shook Nezu's hand. Nezu. Now you all may be wondering why I brought you to this room. As you all may know, a certain Nezu was interrupted by the sudden movement of Izumi as she ran over to give her brother a hug. Hanako, who was standing behind Izuku, smiled at this. Izumi stepped back from the hug and slapped Izuku in the face. Izumi. Why haven't you called me for 2 months? Izuku had a sheepish expression on his face at this. Izuku. Kinda. Blew up my phone. Before Izumi could reply, Tashinori walked forwards with open arms. Tashinori. Son. I'm glad. He was stopped by a sword point to the throat and the girl who was standing behind his child had pulled out a set of ornate claws. Who had somehow moved at a speed that even he couldn't follow. She had these claws at his throat. Hanako. Back off. Tashinori walked backwards, wary of the girl. This is when Katsuki decided to speak. Katsuki. You're Deku how pathetic having that girl talk for you. Hanako tried to grab Izuku's arm, but he was already in Katsuki's face. The Todoroki twins managed to grab his arms before Izuku got too close. Kitsuki set off an explosion, making Izuku flinch and making Hinako realize that the two sandy blonde twins were the ones that gave Izuku his PTSD. Izumi saw Hinako getting angry, so she put her hand on her shoulder. Hinako felt the hand on her shoulder and calmed down. Nezu. That's quite enough, there will be no fighting in my office. Hearing this, Izuku's exterior appearance changed. Instead of being red-faced with rage, he backed up, brushed off his shirt, and fixed his hair up. Izuku turned to Shoto and held out his hand, which Shoto took. Izuku then pulled him into a hug. Izuku. Man, I haven't seen you in ages. Shoto returned the hug, albeit a bit stiff. Izuku then broke off the hug and smiled at his friend. When he turned around, Shoka ran up and hugged him as well. This made Hinako take a half step forward, which Izumi and Izuku both noticed. Izuku. It's great to see you again, little cousin. Hinako, hearing this, backed off a bit. Shoka was a little bit upset with Izuku calling her little until she noticed the height difference. She broke off the hug and gently punched his shoulder. Shoka. Had a growth spurt, eh? Izuku. I guess, makes sense as none of my clothes other than these fit me. Izuku saw that Kitsuki was still fuming at this, but Kitsumi was different. She seemed more mature, her eyes were less angry, and seemed to hold regret. Izuku shook his head at this. Nezu. Well, the written exam is starting soon, so are the recommendation exams, so you should all head off to your respective classrooms. Everyone started to file out except for Nezu, Toshinori, Izuku, Hinako and Izumi. Izumi hugged her brother one last time before she left. As Izuku and Hinako were leaving the room, Toshinori said something. Toshinori. Wait. Son. Come back to us, your mother misses you dearly. Izuku just turned around and stared his father down. Izuku. You reap what you sow, Toshinori, and don't ever call me that again. You are not my father, and I am not your son. Izuku left the room after this and walked to the written exam room, with Hinako holding onto his arm. Izuku. I'd say that went rather well. Other than me not being able to beat the crap out of Kitsuki. Kitsumi seems to hold some regret for her actions, unlike her brother, which is good. I won't forgive her though. Hinako. Don't worry about those guys at the moment, let's just work on these exams. Izuku. Right. As the two entered the room, they saw that their examiner was Eraserhead and that Kitsuki and Kitsumi were in their room. To calm himself, Izuku ran his hands through his girlfriend's hair, which earned a surprised look from the Bakugo twins, among most of the others in the class. This made Izuku grin as he sat down in his seat. He flipped through the exam, his grin widening as every page passed. The exam was so easy. 30 minutes. That's all it took for Izuku to finish the exam. Hinako finished 10 minutes after him. As they left the classroom, Izuku suddenly felt a presence. Dante. He was in the back corner of the class. No, it wasn't Dante, probably his great-grandson. Izuku left the classroom with Hinako in tow. Hinako was a slight bit confused at Izuku's reaction. He would tell her when they got home. Izuku then bumped straight into Izumi, who had also finished her exam. She looked up to see who had bumped into her. She smiled realizing who it was. Izumi. Hello brother. Izuku. Hey, little sis. Izumi. Toshinori is staying late, something about Uncle Nezu wanting to have a chat with him. Izuku. You could come over to our apartment to have some food if you want. I know that Inko wouldn't be home due to her taking up a job to take her mind off the grief of losing me. Izumi. I'd be glad. Hinako, are you okay with this? Hinako. Yeah, I'm glad that I get another girl my age to talk to while Izu here silently cooks. Izumi. When did my brother get so confident and quiet? Hinako. It must be from the Yamato's influence. Izuku sighed as the two kept talking on the way home. Izumi and Hinako talked about him and what type of boys Izumi liked, stuff like that. He suddenly stopped, feeling that presence again, the one that sends him an urge to fight. Then he appeared in front of him. Dante's descendant. Instead of starting an unnecessary fight, Izuku held out his hand and introduced himself. Izuku. Hello, my name's Izuku Sparda, nice to meet you. The other boy looked a bit surprised, but took the handshake. Likewise, name's Ryashi Sparda. Izuku. Descendant of Dante. Ryashi. Yep. Mind if I join you three? Izuku looked at the others, who nodded at him. Izuku. Sure, why not? What food do you like? Ryashi. Pizza. Izuku and Hinako. Dear lord, you're the exact same as him. Ryashi. I've been told that before. Ryashi's face seemed to brighten at this. He seems to like being similar to his great-grandfather, the legendary devil hunter. Dante. Izuku. Allow me to introduce my friends, the one on my right is my sister, Izumi. The one clinging onto me on the left is my girlfriend, Hinako. Ryashi. Nice to meet you both. Hinako. Same. Izumi. Same. This earned a look from Izuku and Ryashi, which made Izumi blush. Izumi. Why are you two staring at me? Izuku. No reason. Ryashi nodded, and the four set off. Once they entered Izuku's apartment, Hanako and Izumi went straight to the couches to chat, whereas Izuku went to cook, with Ryashi following him. Izuku. My sister thinks you're hot. Ryashi. Right. After Izuku finished washing his hands, Ryashi did the same. Izuku. You can cook. Ryashi. Yup, my mother taught me. Izuku. Well, we're cooking chicken. Could you cut the vegetables? Third person Pav. Izuku and Hanako were packing their bags for UA, while Eri was watching. Eri was intrigued by the way that Izuku and Hanako threw and caught stuff without looking. Izuku. Here's your claws. Izuku threw Hanako's claw weapons to her. Izuku had gotten her these as a present. Flashback. Izuku and Hanako were walking through the mall when something caught Izuku's eyes. He saw these claws on advertisement in a weapons store. Izuku walked in, practically dragging Hanako with him. Hanako. Hey. I thought we were only here to get food. Izuku. I found a set of weapons that could assist you greatly, they even suit your close-range fighting style. Hanako sighed, knowing full well that she couldn't stop him when he got like this. She loves her little analyst, but sometimes forgets how far he goes to help people sometimes. It took about 15 minutes extra, but it was worth it. Izuku. Deadly but beautiful. Just like you. This made Hanako blush a bit. The weapons took some getting used to, but they were effective. Flashback end. Hanako caught the weapons. Hanako. Thanks Izu. Once they had finished packing, Izuku, Eri and Hanako left the apartment through one of Izuku's portals. All of them in uniform. This included Eri. They left their bags by the drop-off point and walked off to Class 1A. The three of them bumped into Izumi and Ryashi. Ryashi. Speak of the devil. Izuku. And he doth appear. Izuku held his hand out, and a loud ringing clap was heard as his and Ryashi's hands connected. Izuku. I assume my sister has told you about little Eri here. Ryashi. Yes, she did. Ryashi crouched down to Eri's level and held a hand out. Ryashi. Hello little one, my name's Ryashi, nice to meet you. Eri. Hello. Eri didn't take his hand until Izuku put a hand on her shoulder. Izuku. He's a good friend of mine. You can trust him. Eri shook Ryashi's hand. Ryashi smiled and stood up. The group walked to the oversized doors and heard voices on the other side. Izuku picked up Eri and put her on his shoulders. Ryashi opened the door and the room fell quiet as the top 4 students entered the room. Although, people were more surprised by the little girl. Ida. Why do you have that child with you? Izuku ignored him as Mr. Izawa would explain his predicament when he got there. Hanako sat at Izuku's left. There was a smaller desk to his right where Eri sat. Ryashi and Izumi sat behind them. Ryashi behind Izuku and Izumi behind Hanako. There was 2 empty seats in front of Izuku and Hanako. The door opened again and in walked the Todoroki twins. Shoto nodded at the 4 of them and Shoka waved excitedly. Izuku flinched as the next people came exploding through the door. Literally. The Bakugo twins walked into the room. Kitsumi was rather quiet, whereas her brother was setting off explosions in his hands. Hanako reached over and grabbed Izuku's hand, seeing him flinch from the explosions. Everyone else eventually entered the classroom. Izuku, Hanako, Ryashi, Izumi and Eri went quiet as they heard the door open. Everyone was still chatting until they all eventually went quiet, noticing that their teacher had arrived. Izawa. It took you all 8 seconds to quiet down, except for the top 4 and the girl. Speaking of the girl, allow me to explain the situation. Izuku saved the girl from abusive parents, and she has a powerful quirk that she can't control. With my erasure quirk, I can make sure that she doesn't lose control. Izuku sighed as he remembered the cover story that they were using for Eri. They didn't want the school knowing that she was the daughter of the leader of the Shiha Seikai. Iida stood up again, as if to complain, but Izuku's glare put him back in his seat. Izawa. Now with that sorted, everyone put on your sports uniform, we're going to do a quirk apprehension test. Ichako. What about orientation? Izawa. In this school, teachers are allowed to teach how they like. I like to test my students on the first day to see if they are worthy of becoming heroes. Some other members of the class were complaining, but Izuku, Izumi, Hanako, Ryashi, Eri, Shoto and Shoka had already stood up and started to walk out. Iida. Where are you 7 going? Izuku. The teacher said to get into our sports uniforms, we're going to get changed. Izawa. I like you 7 already. Shortly. Izawa, Izuku, Izumi, Hanako, Ryashi, Eri, Shoto and Shoka were already out at the field, waiting for everyone else to arrive. Izawa looked up as he heard footsteps. The rest of the class had arrived. Once everyone had settled down, Aizawa told them of the tests that they were doing and that they were allowed their quirks. Aizawa asked Izuku to demonstrate the ball throw. Izuku threw the ball up and summoned Yamato, only to have it disappear before he could hit the ball. Aizawa: I would prefer if you hit the ball, rather than cutting it in half. Izuku: Yes, sir. I'll use a different weapon this time. Izuku grinned, getting to show off one of his other weapons, which he hadn't shown Hanako yet. Izuku had trained with these weapons privately, now he had an excuse to show one of them off. He threw the ball up again, and as the ball got closer to him, he dropped into a fighting stance. Izuku: Beowulf. Izuku punched the ball, sending it flying out across the field. Aizawa looked at his tablet and grinned. He turned it around to show the class. Aizawa: Looks like we've got a strong one here. The tablet read 40,000 meters. Izuku: Oof, that's what I get for not practicing a lot with these. Hanako rushed forward and looked at the gauntlets and greaves he had, geeking out at getting to see Vergil's Beowulf. Everyone else was shocked at the feat, especially Kitsuki. Kitsumi was more reserved, her eyes merely widening at the number, rather than fuming at the new power that Izuku has like her brother. Kitsuki: How are you this powerful deck? The loud whacking noise was heard. Everyone turned to see that Ryashi had thrown the ball as well. He had used rebellion like a baseball bat and hit the ball with it. 80,000 meters. Izuku grinned at this. Izuku: Ryashi. Whoever gets first picks dinner. Ryashi: You're on. Aizawa grinned at this show of friendly competition. 50-meter dash. First, Izuku, 0.001 seconds. Second, Ryashi, 0.002 seconds. Third, Hanako, 0.005 seconds. Grip strength. First, Izuku 50,000 kilograms. Second, Ryashi 49,000 kilograms. Third, Izumi 44,000 kilograms. Repeated side steps. First, Izuku 1,100. Second, Ryashi 1,098. Third, Hanako 1,090. Ryashi: Damn it, almost had you on a couple there. Izuku: Hahaha. Yes. I get to pick dinner. The overall scores were as follows. First, Izuku Sparta. Second, Ryashi Sparta. Third, Hanako Sparta. Fourth, Izumi Yagi. Fifth, Momoyaoi Rozu. Sixth, Shoto Todoroki. Seventh, Shoka Todoroki. Eighth, Kitsumi Bakugo. Ninth, Kitsuki Bakugo. 10th, Tenya Iida. 11th, Fumikage Tokoyami. 12th, Mezu Shoji. 13th, Mashirao Jiro. 14th, Ijiro Kirishima. 15th, Mina Shido. 16th, Echaku Uraraka. 17th, Koji Koda. 18th, Rikido Sato. 19th, Sayu Asui. 20th, Yuga Aoyama. 21st, Hinata Siro. 22nd, Denki Kaminari. 23rd, Kayaka Jiro. 24th, Toru Hagakure. 25th, Minoru Mineta. Aizawa: We have some real powerhouses this year. Everyone head off that way, the dorms are over there. Nezu will tell you everything. Man, I need a coffee. The students walked off to meet Nezu by the dorms. Everyone wondered why Nezu would be telling them about their dorms, bar a few. Eri was riding on Izuku's shoulders as she was trying to stay away from everyone else. They arrived at the dorms. Nezu guided them all to the common room. Nezu: Over to the left there is the lounge, and to the right is the kitchen. Izuku immediately walked over to the kitchen as Nezu explained everything to the rest of the class. Izuku pulled a knife out of the knife rack. He smiled seeing that it was sharpened to perfection. Nezu: Due to the size of this class and some special circumstances, there are 2 shared rooms. The shared rooms are as follows. Room 1, Izumi and Ryashi. Izumi looked surprised. She looked at her brother, who was still in the kitchen. He was grinning. Izumi started to blush, realizing that he had asked Nezu for the specific rooming. Nezu: The second shared room goes to Izuku, Hanako and Eri. Due to her condition, it is safest for Eri to stay with Izuku, as his quirk has a healing factor. Shoto: Really Izuku? Your quirk has a regenerative aspect. Izuku: Allow me to demonstrate. Nezu: Don't go overboard like you did with the other teachers. Izuku looked at Nezu with a sheepish grin. Izuku: Just a few fingers then. Izuku lifted the knife up, then let it fall, chopping off 4 of his fingers. A gasp came from the class. The fingers and the blood started to disintegrate as his fingers regrew in 2 seconds. Izuku: Huh, nicely sharpened knife. Momo: That's what you say. Hanako: Calm down, Momo. He's done way worse. Izuku: I can regenerate from basically any injury, but that doesn't mean I don't feel pain. I just have a high pain tolerance. The rest of the class looked like they wanted to ask questions, but they were interrupted by their bags being brought in. As everyone started to take their bags up, Izuku called out a question. Izuku. Head count. Who's up for lunch? I'm cooking. Everyone liked the idea of having their lunch cooked for them. Izuku. 26 rounds, oof. Ryashi, you free to help? Ryashi. Yes. Izumi, could you take my bags up to our room for me? Izumi. Why yes, that's no problem Ryashi. Ryashi. Thanks a ton. Izuku. Eri. Do you want to help cook? Eri. Izuku. Are you shy of the people? Eri nodded her head. Izuku walked over to her and placed his hand on her head, earning a few AWWWs from the girls. Izuku. No one is going to hurt you here. Eri. You promise? Izuku. I promise, Snowball. Eri smiled at this, making anyone that could see her collapse from her cuteness. Izuku. This is my rule. You want to get to Eri, you go through me, understand? Everyone agreed to this. Izuku could have sworn that he heard someone say that he was so manly. Izuku shrugged this off, he just wanted people to treat Eri kindly. Izuku turned around and picked up Eri. He gave her a white tallboy chef's hat. Everyone eventually filed out into the dining area. Everyone who saw Izuku and Ryashi cook were amazed. Their teamwork was impeccable. No one could deny that Eri was cute, she was running around in a chef's hat, passing vegetables and meat to the two. The speed that the two were cooking at was impeccable. They were constantly throwing the knives at each other when need be. Ryashi. Pass me that bread knife please Izuku. Izuku didn't hesitate. He reached out with his hand, grabbed the knife, and threw it at Ryashi without ever looking away from the meat that he was cooking. Ryashi caught the knife without looking and immediately went to cutting the bread. Lunch was served. Eri, Izuku and Ryashi were handing out plates to everyone. Eri got quite a few pats on the head from the girls and some of the guys as well. The food was amazing. Enough to fill them up, but not too much, as they had a heroics class later in the day. Class 1 entered their classroom and sat down, waiting for their new teacher. Izuku was chatting with Eri. Ryashi was chatting with Izumi. That was when Hinako felt the presence, one she wished she would never see again. She grabbed onto Izuku's hand, confusing him. That's when he entered. Izuku. Does he always have to be this flamboyant? Hinako. I know, right. All Might had said something about heroes versus villain simulations. Izuku wasn't really paying attention. Izuku got up to get changed with everyone else. Izuku was going to get changed into his gym outfit. Izuku watched as Mineta wandered over to the wall separating the girls' and boys' change room, inspecting every inch of the place. There was a poster on the wall, so he lifted it up. Mineta. Hey guys. I found a hole that Lee. He didn't get to say any more. He felt the presence of death behind him. He turned around and saw Izuku, who had summoned the Yamato and started to draw it from the sheath. Izuku. Scum like you doesn't deserve to be left alive. Mineta ran out of the change room before Izuku could carry out his threat. Izuku just laughed maniacally and sat in the change rooms, waiting for everyone to leave as he was trying to hide his scars as much as possible. Everyone had arrived at the training grounds, bar one. All Might. Where is Izuku Sparda? Izuku. Right here. Izuku walked out of the tunnel in his gym outfit, getting some sighs of disappointment from some of the girls and a look of disdain from All Might. Izuku watched Hinako try and hide her anger at the other girls. All Might. Where is your hero outfit, young Sparda? Izuku. Right here. Izuku summoned the Yamato. Reality started to form cracks around Izuku. Izuku was obscured by the cracks in reality. When reality around him shattered, Izuku was seen in his hero outfit. Izuku. Are you happy now? All Might sighed and started to explain what was going to be happening with the simulations. Names were going to be drawn out at random, yada yada. Izuku was yet again ignoring what All Might said. He looked over and smiled, seeing Hinako's hero outfit. Izuku. I like the costume, although you could add a bit of green. Hinako thought on this, wondering how she would add some green to her costume. Izuku looked up to see the names shown and had to hold back from laughing. Match 1. Hero Team. Shoto Todoroki and Hanta Zero. Villain Team. Choka Todoroki and Ichako Uraraka. Match 2. Hero Team. Ryashi Sparda and Mezu Shoji. Villain Team. Itsuki Bakugo and Ijiro Kirishima. Match 3. Hero Team. Izuku Sparda and Hinako Sparda. Villain Team. Izumi Yagi and Kitsumi Bakugo. Izuku. Ryashi. Give Kitsuki hell for me. Ryashi. Oh, I will. Especially after what he did to you. Izuku smiled at this and followed everyone to the viewing room to watch the first match. Shoto Pav. I was waiting outside with my teammate. I had the start of a plan in my head. Shoto. I'm going to try and freeze the whole building before my sister manages to set up her plan. If that doesn't work, use your tape to get through the top window, we will be able to cover more ground that way. Panta. That should work out well. All might, loudspeaker Ver. The hero team may now enter the building. With this said, I walked calmly up to the building and placed my right hand on the building, freezing it. The whole building was quickly covered in flames which immediately disappeared after the ice melted. Shoto. Damn it, she had enough time to set up. Zero, can you get up through the top window? Hanta. On it. I kicked down the front door as Hanta flew up to the top window with his tape. I walked around the lower area of the building, making sure that I checked every room. I went up to the second floor and saw her standing there. She ran around a corner and I started to follow. Hearing the sound of ice forming, I lit up my fire side and saw the ice curve around the corner. I blasted it with my fire, surprised at the level of control that she had. I rushed after my sister, realizing how dangerous it was to be out of sight of her. I informed Zero that I had found Shoka. He replied that he was currently fighting Uraraka. I turned a corner and saw her again. This time, she had a sword of ice in one hand and a fire one in the other. I dropped into a fighting stance and watched as Shoka pointed the ice sword at me. I activated my left side as the sword extended and flew at me from where she was standing. Shoka. Shinzam, I mean holy ice spear. I melted the sword as it got to me. I activated my right side. I froze the floor and skated at my sister. Shoto. Ice mace. That's when I heard it. The crackling of fire. I looked to the open door to my left as a wall of flame rushed towards me. Third person POV. Shoka's plan worked. It actually worked. She was so happy, but she couldn't get ahead of herself. She stopped the fire, thinking it was enough. It wasn't. Shoto was in an ice prison. He lit up his left side, melting it, and walked out. Shoto. Sorry Shoka, you can't beat me in terms of raw power. Shoto rushed forwards, sending ice spikes towards her to force her to dodge. He shot fire at her as she tried to retaliate with ice. Shoka summoned an ice clone. This clone managed to knock Shoto back a bit before he could melt it. Shoka eventually fell to her knees, she had run out of stamina. Shoto taped her hands with the capture tape. All might, loudspeaker version. All villains have been captured. The hero team wins. Third person POV. The class stood in shocked silence. Shoto had easily dealt with his sister in a show of absolute power. Izuku grinned at this. He watched as Shoto carried Shoka back to the observation room where Recovery Girl was waiting. All Might. Ryashi SPARDA, Mezu Shoji Katsuki, Bakugo and Ijiro Kirishima, please head to the next building. Izawa. Ryashi, is that a gun? Ryashi. Yes, it's part of my quirk. It's loaded with rubber bullets. Izawa. Alright then, off you go. As Ryashi left, he turned and gave Izuku a thumbs up. Ryashi POV. So his quirk is arm, huh, that should work. Ryashi. Shoji, let's both enter through the front door. I'll go after Katsuki. Mezu. Why are you after him? Ryashi. Call it a favor for a friend. All Might. The hero team may enter the building. I drew my twin pistols, Ebony and Ivory. I kicked the door open. I heard explosions coming towards me. Ryashi. Shoji are on to the right, find Kirishima. Mezu. On it. This was going to be fun. I hid around a corner and waited for Katsuki to come around. I saw his head as he came flying around the corner. I smacked him on the head with the butt end of my pistol. He went flying back into the wall. Ryashi. Well, if it isn't Katsuki Bakugo. Katsuki. You damn bastard. Ryashi. No need for that type of language. Katsuki. You're friends with that quirkless Motherf. Ryashi. Not so fast, Kaken. I'm here to give you hell. But that said, I started spinning my pistols. I jumped my eyebrows at him before he rushed straight to me, screaming bloody murder. Does he have to be so loud? He reminds me of a loud Pomeranian. I blocked his first hit with my bare hands, then dropped down as he set off an explosion. Ryashi. Wow. What power. Let's see how you handle it in return. I crouched down in a defensive stance. Ryashi. Royal Guard. Katsuki set off an explosion at me, but it did nothing. I walked forward with a grin on my face. I drop down to the stance every time he sets off an explosion. I get bored of this slow walking. Ryashi. Trickster. I start dashing around the explosions. I then punched him with the force of all of his explosions combined. I grin as he gets back up. His gauntlets beep. He grins and grabs the pin. Katsuki. I'm going to blast you to hell. Ryashi. Been there and back before. Katsuki. Die. I feel the heat of the explosion wash over me. I hear Katsuki laugh. The fire dies down. I stare him dead in the eyes as I draw Ebony and Ivory. Ryashi. Jackpot. I shoot a shot from each gun. I watch as one hits his chest and one in the head. Katsuki fell down unconscious. Ryashi. Katsuki down. Where are you, Shoji? Emizi owe you earpiece. Second floor, need help with Kirishima. Ryashi. On my way. I tie up Katsuki with the capture tape and rush to where my teammate is. I put away my pistols and reach into my arsenal for a more powerful gun. Instead, I decided to pull out Balrog, my gauntlets and greaves. I fly into the room that Shoji and Kirishima are fighting. Ryashi. Shoji, go find the bomb, I've got this. Bezu. Right. Kirishima tried to run after Shoji, but a kick to the jaw from Balrog stopped him. We both dropped into our respective fighting stances. We start trading blows. I can't break through his defense, he can't break through mine. I grin when the gauntlets light on fire and shout 10. Suddenly, I'm at an advantage. Balrog hits max power after 10 hits. Parts of Kirishima's body start to crack off. I grin and punch him in the stomach. He doubled over in pain as I walk past him to let my gauntlets cool down. Balrog. 3. 2. 1. I put away Balrog as Kirishima stands up. I turn around and talk to him. Ryashi. I don't hold any bad feelings towards you. This is just a game. Before he could reply, I pull out my coyote. I pull the trigger. Kirishima falls over after being hit in the head with a beanbag round. I look up to the camera and wave. All Might. The hero team. Wins. Oh right. I forgot. Incapacitating both opponents is also a win. Third person Pav. Izuku smiled as he watched Ryashi pick up Kirishima and carry him back. He left Katsuki for Shoji to pick up. All Might. Well, that was quick. Izuku. Just you wait for my round. I'll be thinking of you when I go in. All Might looked at Izuku, who had already turned around to talk to Hanako. Ryashi walked in and gave Kirishima over to Recovery Girl. Izuku. Wish you could have beat him for longer. Ryashi. Yeah, but I didn't want to get disqualified. Izuku. Well, whatever. My turn. All Might. Will the third group head down to the building? Izuku. That's our cue, Hanako. Izuku and Hanako left the observation room. They had already thought of their plan. Give them hell. Izuku wanted to test his sister's power and resolve. He also wanted to see if Katsumi truly felt bad for her actions. When All Might called the start, Izuku used Beelf to punch the door open. He told Hanako to go straight as he could sense Katsumi coming from the right. Izuku swapped to his third and final weapon. Mirage Edge. He would need the speed against Katsumi. She rounded the corner and jumped back as she saw Izuku standing there. Izuku grinned and Katsumi shuddered in fear. Hanako was running around upstairs until she was slammed into the ceiling. She looked around and saw a camera. A custom one, not one of Nezu's. Hanako sighed and pulled out a knife. She threw it and smashed the camera. She then fell down and sat up with a grin. Hanako heard Izumi walk around the corner. Hanako smiled and activated her devil trigger. Izumi tried to pin her to the ceiling with her quirk, but it didn't work. Hanako advanced towards Izumi. Izumi launched a floating sword at Hanako while drawing her own. Hanako rushed forward and Izumi blocked her attack. She was launched backwards by the force of the attack. Izumi stood up as gold lightning started to arc around her body. Izumi dashed forwards, using 10% of Ofa. Hanako blocked and was pushed back a bit. Hanako. Oh. This is going to be fun. Izumi. Right back at you. They both pushed off each other and prepared for another attack. Izuku. Why are you so afraid? Katsumi. I'm not. Izuku. You don't seem to be up for the match, want to give up. Katsumi. And no. Izuku. Put some confidence into your words, I promise I won't hurt you too bad. Katsumi kept backing away, she tripped on a stone and fell over backwards. Izuku walked forwards and offered a hand. Izuku. Come on, let's do this. Katsumi. Why are you being kind to me? Izuku. Everyone deserves a second chance. I'm willing to give you a second chance if you fight me at your fullest. Katsumi took his hand and he pulled her up. He walked down to the other end of the hall and turned. Izuku. 3. 2. 1. Katsumi. Go. Izuku grinned and rushed forwards. Katsumi blocked with her gauntlets. Her gauntlets were similar to Katsuki's, but hers worked as jet boosters rather than massive bombs. Katsumi had some similar greaves around her calves. She used these to dash around the place, forcing Izuku to always stay on the offensive. Izuku managed to get behind Katsumi, only for her to set off an explosion from her back. Katsumi turned around and saw Izuku on the other side of the room. Fear in his eyes. It soon disappeared as a concentrated gaze remained. A similar thing would happen every time she set off an explosion, but each time his recovery was quicker. Until Katsumi set off a full power explosion in his face, which he took face on. All of the fear seemingly gone. Izuku. Level 3 concentration, switch. Izuku drew the Yamato and stabbed himself with it. Izuku's body turned green and split in two, one form was left glowing green on the ground. The other half formed a man. A tall, slender young man with pale skin and dark green eyes. With chin-length, natural white hair with long bangs swept to the left, which sometimes obscures his eye, but is packed with his demons, dyes his hair black, and covers his entire upper body and his neck in black tattoos. He is wearing a long, open sleeveless leather coat with the sides tied together by strings, inside pockets, and a sewn-in corset-like vest in the front. He also wears black pants with a silver chain made up of skulls on the right side of his belt and a fingerless glove on his right hand. The man starts to levitate and summons a black and blue bird and a panther. The bird shoots out lightning while the panther morphs into different shapes. Izumi barely managed to avoid the brunt of the lightning, but was hit by the panther a couple of times. She managed to fly back with her rocket gauntlets. Izuku rushed forwards, now back in his normal form. Izuku equipped Beowulf and threw a punch at Kitsumi. Kitsumi put her hands up to block the incoming strike. Hanako was laying on the ground with cuts all over her. Izumi walked up and wrapped Hanako with the capture tape. Hanako. Humph no fair. Izumi. Range beats fists, Hanako. Hanako. TCH whatever. I wonder how Kitsumi is doing. As if to answer her question, she heard the crackling of lightning and a weird voice that she had never heard before. I'm taking my time. Izumi rushed down to where her teammate was, only to be slammed into a wall. She looked up and saw Izuku, who had a couple of cuts on his face. Izuku put away Beowulf and pulled out Yamato. Then he heard it, the slight whooshing of a sword flying through the air. He ducked as a white sword flew past where his head was just before. Izuku. Well, I assume you can use that power to boost the power of the swords. Izumi. Correct. Yellow lightning started to flow over Izumi's body. Izuku blocked sword after sword, unable to get close to his sister. Izuku shot some mirage blades at her, but she kept blocking them with her gold, blue and white sword. Izuku. I should use FatedGil for this, but I'm a show-off after all. Izumi. What? Hanako. Use what now? Izuku. Sin Devil Trigger. The large explosion hit Izuku as he transformed into his SDT form. Kitsumi flew up through the floor. Her eyes widened as she saw Izuku. Izuku, metallic sound. 2-on-1. Seems fair for this form. Izuku moved faster than the eye could see. The amount of demonic energy he was outputting helped Izumi and Kitsumi to dodge out of his way. Izumi couldn't move him with her telekinesis, and Kitsumi's explosions did nothing. Helplessness took over Kitsumi's body. She took a half step back, only for a sudden jolt of power to rush through her. She had a quirk advancement. Izuku was suddenly blasted back by Kitsumi. Izuku stood up and summoned FatedGil. Kitsumi had grown horns, and her eyes were glowing red. Her horns had constant explosions coming off them, her hands and feet were now clawed. Izumi fell over from the exhaustion of overusing both of her quirks. Izuku cracked his knuckles. Izuku. So, now you show me your motivation. Excellent. Izuku pulled out Beowulf again. Izuku. Sorry, but I win. Izuku rushed forwards and slammed 3 powerful blows into her jaw. She fell back a bit before steadying herself. Izuku. Looks like I may have to go all out. Itsumi. Wouldn't want it any other way. Izuku. Hell on earth. Itsumi. Hellfire Buster. He felt the pain of hell rush over him. Izuku fell down on one knee. He looked up and saw Kitsumi teeter before falling over. FatedGil ran forwards and caught her. All Might. The hero team. Wins. Izuku. Yay. Izuku felt the darkness engulf him as his head cracked painfully against the floor. That's it guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.